Welcome to a fascinating journey into the world of extraordinary guitars, where 6 strings on a piece of wood can be worth more than a yacht. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the most expensive guitars ever sold and uncover the intriguing reasons behind their astronomical price tags. Each of these guitars possesses a unique story, a connection to a legendary musician, or a pivotal moment in music history. It is these factors that transform a mere instrument into an object of unparalleled worth. As always, if you enjoy this type of content, be sure to subscribe, as more awesome stuff is on the way. Number 6. Jimi Hendrix's 1968 Woodstock Fender Stratocaster. Sold for around $2 million, the buyer, Paul Allen, is the co-founder of Microsoft. This is the guitar that the legendary Jimi Hendrix used during the famous Woodstock Festival in 1969. That alone should give us enough reason to understand why would a guitar like this be so valuable. Hendrix was one of the most influential guitarists of all time, and his artistic prowess and groundbreaking contributions forever alter the course of music history, making this instrument a tangible relic of his genius. Furthermore, Woodstock Festival, an epochal moment of the history of rock music, is often hailed as the greatest music festival of all time, representing a cultural milestone that continues to captivate generations. Although by the time Hendrix went on stage to perform at Woodstock, which was on the last day of the event, only about 30,000 of the 400,000 people remained in attendance. His performance that day remains in the heads of many as the most iconic part of the festival. And following Hendrix's untimely demise in 1970, anything that once belonged to him suddenly became a revered artifact, an embodiment of his legacy. Among all of those pieces, there is probably only one that could potentially be more valuable than his Woodstock Strat, and that would be the black 1968 Fender Stratocaster that Jimi was last seen with. But that guitar, for the better or the worse, will probably not appear on auction anytime soon. If you're interested, you can learn all about the Stratocaster in our video about Jimi's guitars. Interestingly, when this Woodstock Strat first appeared on the market, it sold for a relatively modest sum of $200,000. This was in 1990, and the guitar was sold by Mitch Mitchell, Jimi's bandmate, to whom Jimi gave the guitar sometime after his final live show at the Isle of Fehmarn in September of 1970. Mitchell sold the guitar to Gabriele Anzalone, an Italian TV host and music critic, who then sold it once again after only 2 years to Paul Allen, Microsoft co-founder, for an undisclosed amount, but believed to be more than $2 million. So basically, this was probably the best investment Anzalone ever made, getting 10x return on his investment in a span of just 2 years. From that point on, the Woodstock Strat was kept safe at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, founded by Allen in 2000, where it can still be seen today. Number 5. John Lennon's 1962 Gibson J160E. Sold for $2,400,000, and the buyer is unknown. It should not come as a surprise that Beatles memorabilia holds immense value and is highly sought after by collectors. Among those prized possessions, one stands out: the acoustic guitar that belonged to none other than John Lennon himself. John bought this instrument on September 10, 1962 at Rushworth's Music House in Liverpool for 161 English pounds, and it accompanied him during the early days of the Beatles, serving as his creative muse, as he composed and recorded some of the band's greatest hits on it, including All My Loving, Love Me Do, and From Me to You. But unfortunately, fate took a cruel turn, and the guitar went missing at the end of 1963, never to be returned to Lennon. Many years later, a guy called John McCaw acquired the guitar from his friend Tommy Presley, but at that point he was completely unaware of its historic significance, and neither him nor the person he bought it from knew they were playing the very guitar once owned by John Lennon. Tommy himself purchased it at a local guitar shop as just a regular old J160E. So years went by, and in 2014, John McCaw, completely by accident, read an article about Beatles guitars and saw an old photo of a J160E, which bore many similarities to his. Both guitars had scratches and marks in identical places on the body, and they appeared to be identical. Seeking a more tangible proof, John consulted the knowledgeable Andy Babuik, author of Beatles Gear, a comprehensive book documenting the band's beloved instruments. Through meticulous examination of serial numbers, Babuik confirmed without a doubt that this was indeed Lennon's cherished Gibson J160E. After being presented with the proof, John decided to sell the guitar through Julian's Live, where it reached a jaw-dropping price of $2,400,000. However, the buyer decided to stay anonymous, so only the select few know who that person is or does. Number 4. Reach Out to Asia Stratocaster. Sold for $2,700,000, and the buyer is the Qatar royal family. This guitar was actually the most expensive guitar at the time when it was sold, on November 14, 2005. Interestingly, the guitar itself is just a regular white Fender Stratocaster, and it's not any more special than any other random Stratocaster that you could buy in a store. What made this guitar so valuable and expensive consisted of several factors. The first was the fact that it was auctioned for a good cause, to aid the victims of the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. Given the global awareness of this catastrophic event, people were eager to contribute and support the relief efforts. The second, the Stratocaster, was adorned with the signatures of renowned guitarists and singers. Signatures from the likes of Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, David Gilmour, and Brian May. The presence of such esteemed names can turn any item into a prized possession regardless of its nature. But although there have been other guitars signed by rock stars that went under the hammer, none have come close to the staggering price commanded by the tsunami-age Stratocaster. For instance, this multi-signed Fender Stratocaster, signed by many of the same individuals, fetched a modest sum of around $11,000. So lastly, we come to the most likely reason for this guitar's absurd price. The auction was held in Qatar, a nation home to some of the world's wealthiest individuals. With the auction taking place on their own soil, it was highly unlikely that the Qatar royal family would allow anyone to outbid them, and there would certainly be more competition among the Qatar family themselves. Because of this factor, the guitar became a symbol of prestige, and the outcome proved beneficial for all parties involved. Some could showcase their opulence, while others received much-needed funds for disaster relief. But it's important to note that this is perhaps the only guitar on the list that is highly overvalued and unlikely to ever be resold for a higher price. It was a unique situation with a lot of factors involved, but the guitar itself does not represent a significant piece of the history of rock music, as the other guitars on this list do. Number 3. David Gilmour's The Black Strat. Sold for $3,975,000, bought by Jim Irsay, American businessman and the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. If you're a fan of Pink Floyd, then you already know just how special David Gilmour is, and how special this guitar was to him. This is the instrument that David used on basically all of the band's greatest hits, such as Comfortably Numb and Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And the guitar you'd see him play live almost on every single Pink Floyd concert. But what sets this guitar apart even further from the others is its unique origin story. Gilmour meticulously pieced it together himself, carefully selecting parts from other guitars that he deemed perfect, infusing the instrument with his own artistic vision. So this is not merely a vintage guitar that passed through the hands of a famous musician. It's a creation of that musician, a reflection of Gilmour's craftsmanship and personal touch. There are whole books written on the history of this guitar and the mods that went through it. And if this is something you're interested in, a link to one such book will be in the description. However, in 2019, Gilmour decided it was time to let go, and he made the difficult decision to part ways with his beloved guitar, demonstrating his commitment to a greater cause. He chose to sell it and donate all the proceeds to Client Earth, a charitable organization dedicated to preserving life on Earth. The fortunate buyer of the Black Strat was none other than Jim Irsay, esteemed owner of the Indianapolis Colts and NFL team. Irsay, known for his passion for collecting memorabilia, possesses a remarkable assortment of treasures. Among his prized possessions are Bob Dylan's legendary Newport Stratocaster, Jerry Garcia's revered Tiger guitar, and even the original manuscript of Jack Kerouac's literary masterpiece On the Road, for which he paid a staggering $4.5 million. So as opposed to the previously mentioned Stratocaster that was priced highly solely symbolically, this guitar is an actual piece of history, likely to become more valuable as the years go by. And even if Jim Irsay is a Pink Floyd fan and he wanted guitar for that reason, what he got himself was an investment for the future. Number 2. Kurt Cobain's Fender Smells Like Teen Spirit Mustang. Sold for around $4.5 million. The buyer, Jim Irsay, American businessman and the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. Kurt Cobain's 1968 Fender Mustang guitar, famously used in the Smells Like Teen Spirit music video, holds immense historical and cultural significance. This particular guitar played a pivotal role in Nirvana's rise to fame during the grunge movement of the early 90s. Cobain acquired it at the famous Voltage Guitar Shop in Los Angeles in the early 90s. And aside from using it in the Smells Like Teen Spirit music video, he very likely recorded some of the songs from both the Nevermind and the In Utero albums with it. This Mustang is also widely known as one of Kurt's favorite electric guitars, possibly second only to his famous 1965 Fender Jaguar. In one interview with Guitar World, he mentioned that he used the Jaguar for live performances, but didn't allow anyone to touch it, and that he avoided using this Mustang altogether during live shows because he didn't want to ruin it. So it was obviously very special to him. As far as the journey that the guitar took after Kurt died, allegedly, his wife Courtney Love gave it to a personal friend as a gift, and it was since then seen on a few different museum exhibits. Unfortunately, it is unknown who this person is, but we guess that the Mustang didn't change owners until 2022 when it was put on auction through Julian's Live. As was the case with the previously mentioned Stratocaster owned by David Gilmour, Kurt's guitar was purchased by Jim Irsay, owner of the Indianapolis Colts, and obviously an avid memorabilia collector. The price of the guitar reached an astonishing $4.5 million, which would have been a record-breaking amount for a guitar if it wasn't for one instrument, funnily enough, also owned by Kurt Cobain. Number 1. Kurt Cobain's Martin D18E, sold for around $6 million. The buyer, Peter Friedman, founder of Rode Microphones, an Australian audio technology company. Kurt Cobain was undeniably one of those extraordinary individuals who made an enormous impact on pop culture. Everything he touched seemed to transform into something incredibly valuable. His passionate and heartfelt performances resonated deeply with an entire generation, encapsulating their frustrations and disillusionment. Today, people yearn to establish a connection with that magical essence in any way they can. For a fortunate few, with substantial financial resources, the direct path to experiencing that connection lies in acquiring the actual instruments that played a part in creating that transformative magic. This particular guitar is one of those instruments, and it gained immense popularity for its association with Nirvana's iconic acoustic concert filmed at the Sony Music Studios in New York City on November 18, 1993, for the television series MTV Unplugged. Kurt acquired the guitar in 1992, not long before the concert, and paid an already substantial sum of $5,000 for it. The price was justified at that point due to the guitar's vintage nature, and it was one of only 320 models produced by Martin, Kurt's guitar in particular being the 7th ever made. What makes this model so special is its fusion of acoustic and electric elements, an innovative approach by Martin, a company traditionally associated with acoustic guitars. However, Kurt himself was not particularly fond of this electric aspect of the guitar, and he famously installed a Bartolini 3AV sound hole pickup to enhance its sound. The journey of this guitar after Kurt's passing is also quite intricate. Ultimately, it ended up in the possession of Kurt's daughter, Frances, who subsequently married a guy named Isaiah Silva. According to Silva, Frances eventually gave him the guitar, and following their divorce in 2016, there were various legal disputes over the guitar's ownership, until it finally landed in Silva's hands. In 2020, the guitar made headlines when it was put up for auction at Julian's and fetched a staggering price of $6 million, setting a new record for the highest amount ever paid for a guitar. It was sold to the founder of Rode Microphones, Peter Friedman. Explaining his motivation behind the purchase, Friedman said that he plans to take the guitar on a worldwide tour and draw attention to the challenges faced by artists globally. Additionally, he mentioned that he intends to sell the guitar in the future and allocate the funds generated towards further support of the artists, which sounds pretty noble indeed. So there you have it. We hope this video explains why some of these guitars are selling for so much money, and how in the world could a guitar possibly cost as much as a private yacht. The primary factor behind these unreasonable prices is sentimental value, which cannot be quantified objectively. And as long as people derive pleasure from the music created by these artists and remain captivated by their life stories and talent, the value of these guitars will undoubtedly continue to rise, which is what the people who bought these guitars are counting on.